Let's take a minute here, guys, and talk about entrepreneurship. So, kind of the American dream, starting your own business, perhaps becoming a partner in a business. That's an opportunity for veterans and their spouses. So, Jason, I want to throw it over to you. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what you see as some of the pros and advantages of striking it out on your own and becoming an entrepreneur after you leave the military?
Yeah, sure. So, first, it's not for everybody, right? There is a tremendous amount of risk. And if you don't have a lot of capital behind you, it could be very stressful. And stress can become a trigger for all kinds of other things, right? So, you want to be smart with it. Sometimes you're not in a position to just jump straight into it, and you might need to kind of dip your toe in the water and start a self-employed kind of venture on the side, right? And some examples of that could be real estate, right? Becoming a realtor, could be maybe working for a financial institution where you're maybe selling life insurance or annuities or whatever. Would be a couple that you could kind of do, working your sphere of influence, right? Working with your friends. If you have a nice ring of friends around you and acquaintances, and you're one of those people that like, hey, look, I know a ton of people. I'm not super necessarily close with everybody, but I know a lot of people, and I'm that type of a person.
Right.
If it's in that world of selling, that is something to think about. But then you have to think about the fact that there are 1,000 different ways that you can go with being self-employed. You could be a landscaper, right? And go start a landscaping business. But the pros to it, I would say, is that you're answering to yourself, but you have to remember your customers are the driving force, and really you're answering to them. They become your boss, so to speak. And so if you like that type of, I guess, ability to make your own decisions and you can gauge what your customers want, then you know what, go for it. But you need to make sure that you have the capital behind you, have a little bit of money stocked away, because believe me, you can go through it quickly, and everybody wants to give you credit. So you don't want to leverage your credit too much and then become in a bad situation. So I covered kind of a little bit of the positive. I was a little more on the negative side. So I want to kick it to Chris to give us the glass half full approach versus my glass half empty words of caution approach. So Chris, what you got?
Yeah, look, I grew up in a small business. I fully know the risks and the challenges of small business life. In entrepreneur is everything from, starting your own plumbing company or becoming a consultant of something that or, it can mean a lot of things, all the way through. I have this idea that I think is going to change the world. It's called Bitcoin. So even entrepreneurship can mean a lot of different things. And depending upon the angle that you take, if you're coming out of the military and you went and got a computer software engineering degree, and you had this idea that you created and you want to take it and get venture capital funding or an angel raise, that is a little bit different type of entrepreneurship than somebody who's going to come back, take over their family plumbing business or whatever. So there's lots of different slices of this, but what Jason said is really, really true. What most folks who end up going the entrepreneur path route want to do is they want to do their craft. Yet most of their time is spent on doing billings, finding customers, doing all the things other than really doing their craft. And I see so many people struggle, not just veterans, but I happen to live in an area where I go out and I seek veteran contractors, and they're no different than the other contractors who are, overpromise, underdeliver. I still owe a lot of money, and I keep asking, send me a bill, send me a bill. And they want to actually build stuff, and that business side takes a hit, and that can only last so long. So there are lots more risks associated with entrepreneurship of any kind as you transition than going to even a small or larger company where you're going to have those benefits. You're going to have, cheap offerings for insurance, better pay. You're going to have resources like tuition reimbursement, veterans networks, possibly in those companies where you have sounding boards and places that help get guidance when you need it. Going out on the entrepreneurial side could be very, very lonely. Now, the upside is you get to do what you want. You get to hire who you want. You get to take time off when you want, not take time off when you're working. Generally speaking, it's the not take time off part that is the hardest. So lots great there. I don't know if I delivered on the glasses half full side, but it's an amazing thing to be. It's an amazing thing to be your own boss in terms of, especially when you have a family, flexibility with the kids and giving back to the community, being part of the community. All those things are fantastic, and those things are things that we really enjoyed in the military in terms of being part of a community, right?
Yeah, I think running your own business as a veteran has a real upside in that you can innovate. In the military, we're trained to innovate within certain boundaries. We don't want to get outside of our lane or outside of what's safe. But in the entrepreneurial world, you can kind of let your creative juices flow and you can innovate. And then, I'll leave it as a glass is half full kind of thing, and then we'll come to some of the disadvantages. But honestly, personal fulfillment, if you've never cut a paycheck before, and a lot of military folks who went in after high school or after college have never cut a paycheck, there's a lot of personal fulfillment when you are running a successful business and you're making payroll and you know that the people that are working hard for you are getting the salary that they were promised, and they're taking that home to their families and providing for their kids and building their little corner of Americana from your company. There's a lot of personal fulfillment in that. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'd recommend you take a look at it as a veteran or a military spouse. I will turn it around.
And you're the one on the hook for creating the culture and the work environment and all of these things. And that's actually super, super exciting.
It is. I'll step back on culture there just for a second. Remember, folks, culture is kind of like a tree. You plant a seed and you don't even realize that it's growing. And then by the time it's a couple of feet tall, it's got a pretty well established root structure. So just as kind of a pro tip here on this conversation, if you're starting your own business as a veteran, remember your culture is started before you even realize it. Only when there's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 employees, you've got a culture, and that culture is going to be very hard to change later. So get it started right, and good things will happen. You want a healthy culture. Disadvantages.
Yeah, I want to throw in real quick that there's a hybrid version of entrepreneur. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm going to call that your commission only type jobs, where you're in control of your own paycheck. And in some cases, you're in more of control of your time you work and that type of stuff. And they can be very lucrative and come with some kind of safety nets behind you to at least feel like you have some support. Right.
Right.
So I can mostly speak to what I've done in the past. And one of the jobs that I did for many years, and I know I look much younger than I am. We'll just throw that out there. Makes myself feel good. So anyway, I was in the mortgage industry for 12 years. So, and in the mortgage industry, I was commission only the whole time. And then toward the tail end, the last 2 or 3 years, I actually did a partnership with a buddy of mine, and we created a brokerage. And this is back through the late 1990s into 2010. So we went through the 2007-8 real estate debacle. It was horrible. But it was like being self-employed, right? What I would tell people that I would hire is, look, this could be the easiest low-paying job that you've ever had, or it could be kind of a difficult, but the highest paying job that you will ever have. I made more money than doctors, you know what I mean? Unless you're like a brain surgeon or something, but look, just a general practitioner. I made good money in that industry, and it's because of my work ethic. I showed up, right? I showed up because that's what was drilled into us, right? When I got into the
Right.
mortgage industry, it was within probably about a year after I got out of the Marine Corps in 97. So I got into mortgages in 98, and you just hit the ground running. And it was not easy, but the dividends paid off, right? You
Right.
get you get out of things what you put into it. So just wanted to throw out there that there are kind of loose other versions of self-employed that
Yeah.
kind of have a little bit of a safety net behind
There's,
you.
I mean, we don't need to get too technical, but there is you are your own company, sole proprietorship. You are creating a company, some sort of LLC or C corp. You are a 1099 employee, like Jason was saying, where you are considered your own business, but you're working under a shell of a business. Um, Uber drivers, for example, some of them are employees, most of them are 1099s. I mean, if you really think about that example, that highlights the things, the considerations of that type of self-employment type of work that will, as you kind of start figuring out the post-military transition and career, the good thing is that a lot of these jobs are now online and you could do them from anywhere, much more so. It used to be where large companies, you pretty much had to go in. Small companies had to be nimble and flexible. It really depends upon what industry you're in, whether you're a service provider or consultant, et cetera. It all really depends. But now the world has shifted completely, where there's a whole lot more, at least hybrid opportunities, and even way more remote opportunities than what used to we used to. You could go on some of these work platforms that are Upwork, and get paid to do jobs there. So the world has gotten very, very complex, but at the same time, it's given us more and more options. So all of these things are tips and considerations that as you go out and explore all of these options, which, by the way, you should not wait until you transition to do. You should get a good jump on this. The skill bridge idea is a great example for understanding, because this is just kind of the work and skill transition part. There's the emotional part, there's the family part, there's the psychological part, there's the financial part. There's so many aspects to a really good transition. There's the culture part, there's all of these things. And so this is why we spend time sharing our learnings and journey, to make sure that you have what you need to actually get to the right thing quicker that's best for you, or get to a place that is a jumping board and a sounding board for what you really want to do. Randy, take it from here.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, almost maybe for another episode, what went through my mind as both of you spoke was we didn't mention franchising. So that's another opportunity and segue we can get into probably on another episode. But let's circle back and do some of the disadvantages of being an entrepreneur. I'll start off because I've done that before. I think for me, from a veteran's perspective, uncertainty and ambiguity can be difficult. We're used to policies and processes in the military, things being defined for us, a mission that's presented to us, culture that we come into in a unit or in a squadron or an organization. And you don't have any of that when you're an entrepreneur. You've got a lot of ambiguity, and that can be scary for a veteran. So that can be a con. The second thing I'd say, and I'm not even going to get into the financial part of it because entrepreneurs take a lot of financial risk, but is work-life balance. We think of entrepreneurs, I'm my own boss. I don't have to follow anybody else's schedule. But the dirty little secret is entrepreneurs are some of the hardest working people on the planet. Not all of them, but a lot of them are, especially the successful ones. And if you've got a family, if you've got kids, this is a conversation that you need to have as a family before you jump into entrepreneurship. It needs to be everybody's in, everybody understands what it's going to look like, and that, whoever's doing the work is going to be away from the house quite a bit or be busy doing other things. So those are my two cons. Jason, I'll toss it back to you. What are some of the disadvantages you see to entrepreneurship for veterans and people transitioning?
I'm going to just double down kind of on what you're saying here. Being an entrepreneur, especially if you're just starting off, right? Nobody's gonna go, hey, I'm gonna become an entrepreneur, and today and then tomorrow, all of a sudden you have a multi-million-dollar business. It takes a lot of work to get there, and so it's usually going to start off with just you, which means you're the janitor, you're the CEO, you're the secretary, you're the talent, you're everything. And that goes back to what you're saying, Randy, which is that it becomes all consuming, literally. And I will tell you that the bear that is chasing you is failure. So you are running from that failure bear full speed for, in some cases, multiple years, because you just want to get it to become where you can hire enough people to where you could back up and only work 40 hours a week, right? Like that seems like a dream. And I will tell you that even on the kind of hybrid version, right, like a 1099 employee, commission only type stuff, you realize very quickly that, okay, well, my customers, right, have other options. So if I'm not available, they're going to call somebody else, which means they won't be my customer anymore. They're going to be somebody else's. Therefore, I must always be available. Even when I'm not working, I'm available. Here's my cell phone, here's my email, and you get the phone call. My good example that I give, again, I mean, I was making really good money, but there's a trade-off. It's you lose that flexibility. And like you said, Randy, you having the conversations with the family. We had a family, not vacation, but like a weekend kind of planned. We were going to go away for the weekend. And sure enough, I get a call that morning. And, this is when I was in the mortgage industry. And here I am on the phone, and I get a realtor calling me who I hadn't done any business with. A brand new realtor who couldn't get a hold of their lender called me. They had somebody they needed to get pre-approved. Well, guess what? I'm your guy. I'll do it. What time? Today at 3:00 or something. We were getting ready to load up in the car and leave. And I had to say, look, we're not going because I got to go do this.
Right.
And so we had to cancel our weekend and, do it on another weekend. But the point is that you will become very, I guess, in tune with where the money's coming from, because it could not be there just as easily as it is there. You can have a 0 payday month, which is horrible. So you run from that failure bear, and the consequences can become, catastrophic if not properly managed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how about you, Chris?
With all this happy talk around, all of the
Hey,
risks associated.
He asked for cons. He did.
That's true. That is true. And you guys have touched on all the ones that I would have said. And when I've had my entrepreneurial spirit, we, started a gym, all of my big risks I took, with my wife, kind of leading the charge and me being there for support, were risks that I had the full-time gig. Right. There was a sense of security. We didn't have to put our mortgage on the line, or not having benefits. And that was before Obamacare, where actually if you pretty much didn't have benefits, or they were so super expensive that it was really hard to leave jobs. Now that's a little bit different. You do have a safety net from a benefits perspective to go flaunt with your entrepreneurship. But the point I was going to try to make actually is, like, if this is scaring the shit out of you, then you should consider staying in. And like, don't think that the grass is always guaranteed to be greener, because you're going to have to work your ass off for it. When you're transitioning and you're used to having responsibility at a young age, you're used to having people rely on you, your soldiers relying on you being involved in every aspect of their life. And then you come into the civilian world, and either you're out on your island trying to, get people to understand that you have a great idea, your art is worth buying, or you're a better plumber than the one down the street, right? There's an opportunity there to think about your transition ahead of time and stay in for a little bit longer until you have it figured out, until you have that business plan written, until you've talked to your friends, until you've networked on LinkedIn and caught up with some people who have transitioned. So, like, these are all things that you should be doing throughout your career, not just at the time of transition. And thinking about staying in or thinking about staying in the reserves as part of that half transition out, there's lots of different options and opportunities that are worth considering. Just don't get so caught up with, I've had a bad assignment, or I had a bad boss, or I got a bad review, and I got to get out, and I don't have a plan.